end of summer this year, what I set out to do is start my peppers that I plan to grow for next gardening season. And I started them at the end of summer so that way it'll be easier for them to germinate and getting off to a good start outdoors because we still have the natural sunlight and we still have some decent warm weather left in the season. For me, I think it's a really good idea because I normally overwinter peppers anyways, and so I can get them started and keep them alive and growing and thriving through the winter months indoors. Now I have this soil here in this bucket that I grew a pepper plant in, so I'm just gonna give it a little boost, add some chicken compost. As you can see, it's heavy soil. It's pretty much dried out and looks so depleted. It's compacted in this bucket, but I'm gonna wake it up a bit, give it some good natural organic compost that I made right here with my chicken compost. I'm going to pull out all the old roots and the spent root from that plant I had in there before. And this is just a way to give this soil that was already used up and depleted a little boost to grow other plants in. One of the beautiful things for me in gardening is to see the results that I get when I operate in this fashion, because this soil does not get tossed away. All I do is add some of my compost in it, which is aged chicken manure and broken down leaves and grass clippings and bushes or weeds from my garden that I allow to break down thoroughly for at least 6 months, and I add it back to the soil that I've previously grown in just to give it a really good natural nutrient boost. So I'm going to properly mix the chicken compost here in with the soil, and as you can see right here, I have earthworms also in here because this came from the compost pile that I have just sitting on the ground where I break down the material to feed the soil. And this natural material also creates a lighter soil from just incorporating broken down wood chips and broken down leaves and all the garden greens and grass clippings. It lightens up the soil a bit, it feeds the soil, and the earthworms in here also help break the soil down and make it a bit lighter. This lighter soil also makes it much easier for the roots of the plants to make their way through the container, whether it's in a container or it's in ground. The lighter soil makes it easier for the plants to grow and the roots to find their way to find nutrition from that soil for its optimal growth. Now last year I did do this method of growing peppers starting them late in the season to give me a head start for the following season, and I can tell you that it worked out great for me. Now I'm going to pot these peppers in these planters right here. They're smaller planters. Now I'm growing these indoors over the winter months, and then I am going to transplant them in ground in the spring, or even if I choose to grow them in containers, I'll just pot them in bigger containers where they would flourish and grow really well and produce lots of peppers. Alright, so here we go. I have my pepper starts right here. I'm going to add some of that soil in the planters. However, I'm not going to fill it up all the way, just probably about halfway. No, these are not going to grow as fast as if they're outdoors in the summertime or even in the spring when the weather is favorable for maximum growth. Now, they're indoors, so they're going to grow, but they're going to grow at a much slower pace than if they're outdoors getting natural sunlight and in the environment for them to grow and produce adequately. So like I said, I'll have them indoors where I'll be providing artificial light for them until it's time to bring them out again in the spring where I can get them growing in ground. Alright, now here I dropped a few seeds in every cell, and as you can see, the root system is well established and the peppers have already put on their true leaves and they're growing really healthy. So I'm going to go ahead and separate them without damaging the roots. And I'm not going to plant them as deep as I would if I were growing them within that same season. And that's because I want to leave room in that pot for the growth of the roots while they're growing slowly over the winter month. I definitely don't want them to become root bound and have to pot them again before the season starts next year. And this is the reason why I'm doing it this way. Alright, so now we have our first pot in here. I'm going to go ahead and continue to pot the other seedlings. I am going to allow them to stay in the greenhouse for a few weeks before I put them indoors for the winter, because we still do have some decent weather in the 50s and 60s and they still can enjoy some natural sunlight.